Welcome back to From Corporate to Cash Flow. We are Andrea Cannon and Liz Schwab, two pharmacists navigating the process of building time and financial freedom through real estate investing and lending while working our day jobs. Navigating the journey is difficult, but our podcast guests are experts in showing us how it's done. And today we have Ronald Paulius with us. Ronald, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Andrea and Liz, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much. Super excited to get to learn a little bit more about you. So, to get started here, we would love to hear a little bit about your journey into real estate. So, tell us a little bit about maybe you had a regular job, how did you transition, and what are you focusing on in real estate today?
So, in 2023, I was a school bus driver for the public school system here in Oklahoma City. I moved here from Miami, Florida, and did that because I'm an associate pastor here. So, I've been doing that for, I think, 23 or 22 when I moved here. Got married in 23, and so that's why I transitioned or I did school bus driving on the side because, as many of you know, pastors aren't making buku bucks, not a lot of them at least. And so in 24, I transitioned to be a high school teacher, and that was a funny conversation because one of my high school route, I spoke to the principal, would have conversations, and he wanted to know a little bit about me, and I said, "Well, I graduated from Bible college, got a bachelor's uh, in ministerial, and then a master's in educational leadership." And he about slapped me in my head and was like, "Why are you driving a school bus? We need teachers." And so, come the end of 23, that August, that new school year came around just about, and he called and said, "Hey, I need a teacher for," I think it was geometry and some science. And I said, "Ooh, I can wing a lot of things, but I cannot wing geometry and science."
Yeah.
I said, I think I'm more of an English teacher." And he said, "Oh, I don't have a position for that." But he referred me to someone else, and we booked an interview, and they hired me right on the spot. And so 23 to 24 school year, I was a high school teacher for that duration, English class and it was it was intense.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could teach anything at this point, to be honest with you. So kudos to you. Kudos. So talk to me a little bit about like how long you said you did that for a year, and then how did you become interested in real estate? Like, what did that transition look like?
So that interest began when I was younger. My mom was giving a check to our landlord at this apartment. And it just dawned on me. I remember having the thought vividly that it'd be nice to be on the opposite side of that mirror, that window, getting that check. I didn't have any concept of real estate. I didn't realize that there was single family homes and then commercial. I didn't know any of that. I just said it'd be nice to be getting that check. My mom never owned a house, always rented wherever we were at. And so I never had any idea of ownership or a house, down payment, none of that. Well, fast forward, I became a Christian at the age of 16, so didn't grow up in a Christian household. And through turns of events, God put a bunch of people in my life. I didn't have a father. And so I had a bunch of spiritual fathers who poured into me, helped me learn how to budget, invest in stocks, and make sure I graduated debt free from college. And, just all of these different things. Fast forward, it was 23, got married, and I just felt the need to provide more for my family. And I just had this desire for more. I know people, Andrea, Liz, I'm sure you guys have had that desire where you just felt like, man, this is a nice job. I'm making good money, or I'm not making good money, but I know I could be doing way more with my life, way more with my time, way more to provide for my wife. And so I went on YouTube University. I enrolled there again and just started deep diving into what I could do on the business side. And so I looked at pressure washing businesses, car washing, mobile detailing, just all of these things. Finally landed at doing a Christmas light installation business. And during my interview with Pace Morby, he made fun of how Christmas comes one time a year. It's not a sustainable business in some ways. And so I, uh, in this is 23. So towards the end of 23, like even my high school kids, they're seeing me go through this journey. Like I have this new idea of what I'm doing. I went through Rich Dad Poor Dad with them because it was like the allowed book I could do. And so they're on this journey with me. All of my friends and family are having whiplash because one day I'm starting a mobile detailing, a pressure wash business, a roof cleaning business. I'm gonna be a roof salesman. And so I settled with Christmas lights, started to also entertain wholesaling because I just had in my mind, I'm a very long term thinker. And I said to myself, okay, I'm going to start this business on the side to get capital to get into real estate. Because I said to myself, oh, I need 20% down. I need, I need to skin in the game to get into this. And I'm sure your listeners are probably thinking that too. Well, I found out that wholesaling was a way to get into the game without having 20% down. And so 24, my wife was expecting our first child, Ava. She was due January 6th and January 1st of 2024. I ended the Christmas light business positive. So it was my first business ever. I jumped in, went to a coaching program, like invested in myself in a way I've never did before. And then I walked out positive. But January 1st came and I said, okay, I need to get into this real estate space because my wife is due in 4 days or 5 days, and I need to provide more. I'm an associate pastor, not making that much. The Christmas site business like broke even, gave me a few $1,000s extra, but here's a year, and I gotta wait 11 more months for Christmas to come again. And so I jumped into wholesaling. I jumped right in, got into, was doing for sale by owner on Zillow. It was so, and then I joined Sub 2 in February of 2024, started networking like crazy, networked locally with the guy named Nathan Yurkis, and he had just joined and he wasn't a buyer. I wanted to wholesale two investors, two buyers. And so we got together and was like, what if we focus all of our energy together on helping people in pre-foreclosure? And so we did. And so during my lunch break, after school, on Saturdays, I was knocking doors like crazy. And that's kind of my journey getting into it. And did a couple deals before I joined Sub 2, and then did a couple more. One specifically that ended up changing my life big time in August of 2024.
Yeah, very cool. You don't hear a lot of stories of people going from like a bus driver or being an associate pastor to going all in real estate, right? But your story definitely makes sense and resonates with a lot of people. To your point, we hear all the time people saying, we want more, and like you may be happy or may not be happy with your current job, but wanting to provide for your family and continue to elevate yourself. So that's very familiar. I was wondering for our audience if maybe you can just kind of go into detail of what like pre-foreclosure is and
Yeah.
maybe what options people may or may not have at that point and what you are doing at that stage.
So pre-foreclosure is when a lender on a property that a buyer used, so a homestead buyer, I bought my first home and I use a lender to get the cash needed to purchase the house. That lender the lender doesn't own the property, they just have a lien against the property or interest in the property through that lien, that loan they gave you. And so when a buyer defaults by being 5 months behind or plus, at least here in Oklahoma City, that's when a lender can start foreclosure, meaning they can now sell the property at auction to get their money back. Most lenders don't want the house, they just want their money that was collateralized or leaned against the house to make their money back because they're in the business of using money to make money. Well, here in Oklahoma City, what I do is I knock doors. I Meaning I show up at your front door and I say, "Hey, your lender has started foreclosure process on you," and I help homeowners take the time to look at their options to stop foreclosure. I say stop foreclosure and not save your home or stay in a property because I work with so many people who either they're in two boats. They want to keep their property, so there's options to stop the foreclosure on this side also, or they want to sell the property, and there's options to do that. And in if they're successful in selling, that also stops the foreclosure. And so I just take them through that journey. I hear where they're at. I closed a deal yesterday, bought a deal, and then sold it to an investor. And that homeowner, initially gave me a smoke screen. I want to keep the property. But through listening and having a conversation, I found out he wanted to keep the property, but he knew after the questions I asked, it was not realistic for him to keep the property. And then I ended up buying it from him. That stopped the foreclosure, paid the original lender off, prevented it from getting on his record, and now he's on to that next chapter with a nice check on his end.
That's so cool. And it's nice that you can help people and make money while doing it, and, save their credit and keep them from,
Exactly.
losing as much money as they could. There's so many different factors of the pre-foreclosure space that you can provide help. So this is really fascinating. You mentioned to us that a deal changed your life back, it sounds like in August of 24. And I would love to hear a little
Yeah.
bit more about that deal specifically.
Yeah, so I was knocking doors during my lunch break. I can it's quite embarrassing. I joined Sub 2 in February, and between my 6-minute bells between classes, I was networking between giving students assignments and quizzes and in-class reading. I was on Zooms with Pace Morby. One Zoom, he talked about that just hit me square in my eyes. He said, "The magic you are looking for is in the work you are avoiding." Oh, another quote that I speak in quotes. Words are my love language, and so Alex Hermosi, he said, "Volume beats luck every time." And so I joined Sub 2, and people say, I knock 20 doors a week, 15 doors a week, 30 doors a week. I said, okay, what if I knocked 120 doors a week? What success would I get? And so I did. I knocked a whole bunch. When the bell rang for my kids to go to lunch, I was going to lunch. And when school was over, I was going out with them. And so this specific deal knocked during my lunch break several times, and school ended up ending, and I followed up after. And what I found, Andrea, was I got there, mail was just piling up. I'm new to this. Now, when I see that, I know the property is vacant, or at least it's an indicator because usually people get their mail. Well, it's piling up. But I kept putting my paper plate. Hey, it's Ronald. I can help stop the foreclosure. And then I enter my phone number. And I would notice my paper plate wasn't there week to week. And so that told me somebody was getting it. Well, fast forward, I did a little bit more digging. The original homeowner passed away, and there were heirs involved. Well, those kids later on I found out was coming every single week. Did what is called skip tracing, which is basically you're searching the website to find information on someone. So if you put in Ronald Paulius, you'll find my YouTube, you'll find my Instagram, you'll find my Facebook, you'll find this podcast, and you'll realize, oh, I'm gonna try to get a hold of this person. Well, that's what I did. And I got a hold of this person, and in conversation, I found out that at first he was real standoffish. And I found out through asking questions that they were going through probate. And so I said, "Oh, okay." And remember, I'm new, so when I hear lawyer, I get a little bit scared at the beginning. Now I'm like, put your lawyer on put your lawyer on the line. Let's talk to him together, you know. But but then I was a little bit afraid, and so I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll let you figure that out, and I'll follow back up with you." I was working with Nathan Yurkis at the time, so we were talking. He's the one that helped skip trace at the beginning with me, and he said, "Well, just follow up." I said, "Okay." But what was interesting was that when I initially Nathan, like, found a GoFundMe, like, we deep dived into this deal, and we couldn't get a hold of him, and so I'm, going back a little bit. The way I was able to get his number was I went on Instagram and found that it was a business Instagram. So the guy's phone number was right there if you hit call, and so I did. So I had that initial conversation, he was push offy, and then I followed back up, and I said, "Hey, so I know you said you were working with your probate lawyer to figure things out, but I just want you to know foreclosure has been started on this," which he was aware of, "and by the time you figure out what you're doing with your probate lawyer, the house probably will be sold," you know? And he just opened up. It was a wound. Found out that mom passed away, and there's another heir involved that is mentally disabled, but an adult. So now we got to get guardianship, this, and that, and this. I was like, wow, okay. And in the process, I also found out they were coming every single weekend to get items that they wanted to take with them. They were living about 2 to 3 hours away. So you can imagine just to drive and drive back, drive and drive. Some people have broken in. It's a whole mess. Well, we met at the property, me, him, his wife, Nathan Yerkes, had a conversation, and we essentially listened, and we just focused on the pain points. We just focused on what was the biggest hurdle for them, what was the hardest heartache, and they essentially were, "We got a bunch of things in here that we wanna get out, and we're coming every weekend to do so. We don't know what to do with this probate." The lawyer we're talking to was actually, I found out, doing a guardianship for the brother. So they didn't even start probate on the estate yet. They were figuring out the brother stuff first and then starting probate later. And so we said, "Well, what if we just paid for your probate, and now that's no money out of your pocket, and we find out our probate lawyer could wrap in the guardianship altogether." So 2 birds with 1 stone. So we just layered with value, and then the other sticky thing that we found out was that the 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 person's wife was on, uh, like, disability. So there was only a certain amount they could even bring in without hurting their disability. It's like, okay. And so we talked to the probate lawyer that I still use today. He's phenomenal. And what happened was he worked it out to where it went to a certain account and it didn't hurt their disability. Anyways, they walked out with a nice chunk of money. Well, I got the deal on the contract. I sold it to Nathan, still holds it to this day. Actually, I did an interview with Pace Morby about that very house, and it's on his YouTube channel. And I walked away August of 2024. So August of 2024, the school year already started. I had to be transferred to another school because my principal, I realized real quickly in the corporate world and in high school specifically, there are a lot of emperors walking around with no clothes. And it is advantageous if you're not the little kid pointing out that the emperor has no clothes. So I transferred to another school because I kind of was that little kid saying, should the kids be smoking in the bathroom? You know, should we be allowing this and that?" Anyways, went to another school, wanted an English position, applied for an English position and said, "Hey, you got hired for a chemistry and anatomy position." Do I know anything about anatomy? No. Do I look like I know anything about chemistry? No. But I said, okay, job security. I need income. I'm providing for my wife and our now 8-month-old child, and so or 7-month-old. So I took it. All the while, this deal was in the pipeline, because probate takes time. It was about a month to get all the 239s signed and the guardianship so that they can sell the property as is, and then they go on with the probate, and we have the house and at least the foreclosure stop. And then it also took a month or a half to build the rapport, follow up, have the conversation, find a time when they can spend a weekend to talk with us. So August comes, and I get into an accident door knocking, which is it just crazy. It was my last door. Got into an accident. Went to door knock the next day with my wife's car. Then I got a check. You guys want to know the amount of that check? It's
Yeah.
crazy. The amount of that check, guys, was $40,000.
Oh gosh. Wow.
And
Your first deal. This is 40,000 for your first deal.
$40,000. It technically was my second deal after joining Sub Two. The first deal was like 5K on a Sub Two, but $40,000. And guys, it took me 9 months of working to get $43,000, and I had to pay taxes on them. So I netted, I don't even know. It took me door knocking around probably a total of 1 hour. I mean, conversations that lasted 10 to 15 minutes here, in person conversation, and then underwriting. So probably a total of an hour, maybe 2 hours worth of work. And then 3 months later, I get a check. In 3 months was only because it was probate, $40,000. And what I told my, I went home, went on a nice lunch with or dinner with Nathan and my whole family. He catered, he took us out, really took care of us. I told my wife, I was like, babe, I think if I quit my high school job and have this $40,000 for the next 3 or 4 months to kind of cover our expenses, if I quit and I go full time on this, I think I can do it. Because if I got 40K during my lunch break, can you imagine what I could do if I'm full time? And it's been quite, that was 24, 2026. I'm still full time. Just closed the deal yesterday. I made $66,000 on door knocking, and it's just been amazing so far. Changed
Oh,
my life.
what an incredible story. I love the, the persistence and just everything that was involved in this deal. And we so often hear that people have, oh, I work full time. Oh, I have this, that, and the other. Oh, I have children. I mean, you're just naming off all these things that are everyone else's excuses, and you're
Mm.
still getting it done. And then now, obviously you went full time, but still have the kids, still have the wife, still have the family responsibilities.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
impressed. Oh my gosh. Thinking about, your overall journey. I mean, you've already shared so many freaking golden nuggets, but what's the biggest lesson that you've learned that you wish you knew earlier in your journey?
It's going to take longer than you expect, but it's going to come all at once. And what I mean by that is I got a couple deals down before sub two, and I think that was Jesus just working out the details and letting it work. Because I've heard so many stories. I've called 10,000 people. I've done this and that. I've knocked all these doors. I've gotten nothing. And I just called a few on for sale by owner on Zillow and built really good rapport. One of my Clifton strengths is woo, top five. And I wooed them over. And yours too, Andrea. Wooed them over. And God just I think God was just like, hey, you need this proof of concept because this is a path I want you on. And plus, I was too hungry. I was not gonna give up. On Martin Luther King Jr. Day, during that little, my wife just gave birth. She's at home postpartum. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. There's that weekend. There's a snowstorm. School's out. I said, babe, I got an appointment. I'm gonna go try to get a contract. And I did, but it was not with the person who had the authority to sign. But I was just like, I'm hungry. I want to do it. And the biggest lesson was just you need to keep on the path. Too many people start gardens, they sow they sow seeds, tomato, pineapple, whatever it is, and then they run off to another garden and say, I'm going to start this garden over here and I'm going to do sweet potatoes. I'm going to do this. It's a totally different thing. And so come harvest, they were thinking, why haven't my tomatoes grown? Where's my sweet potatoes? Where's this and where's that? And the reality is they just didn't take the time to cultivate it. The truth is, if you cultivate the tomatoes, you will get tomatoes. If you cultivate sweet potatoes, you will get sweet potatoes. What people do is they want this and they want that, and they get nothing at the end of it. If you're sowing seeds, John Maxwell said this to me yesterday. If you're sowing, this was a live event. It wasn't just me. I'm not that cool. But if you're sowing seeds, you don't have to worry about a harvest. That's the reality. And I wish I knew that early on because that probate deal took about 3 months and I was up and down. I was knocking doors, 120 a week. The most doors I knocked in a day was 60. It's insane. I was knocking doors after my little Toyota had its AC go out and I'm in Oklahoma City. Temperatures are going up to 100. It's summer. I'm still knocking doors. I'm hungry. And I wish I knew that it was going to take longer than I expected, but then all at once. Because that would have helped me hold on a little bit longer with hope instead of talking to Nathan and talking to my wife saying, "Oh, I'm depressed and I don't know if this is going to work. And, I don't know if I'll be able to even quit my job and do this." It would have helped me say, okay, I know this is going to work. I just need to hold on. The seeds will be harvested here soon in the fall. Just keep going. Just keep doing the thing.
Yeah, you have a lot of good stories. Like, I think we could take like 10 quotes just straight out of this podcast itself. That really resonate, I think, with a lot of people. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could expand on something because, as you mentioned, so you have woo as a top strength, and Andrea does as well. I'm wondering, as someone who does not have woo as a top strength, how do you integrate that into like your seller negotiations then?
I would say lean in to your strengths. You will win people using your strengths. You will lose people using your weaknesses. And what I mean by that is my lowest, some of my lowest is harmony. My wife, that's her top 5. So we're working great together because she's picking up my weaknesses, I'm picking up her strengths. We're crushing it going forward. In negotiations, you want to just lean in on your strengths. Don't try to be someone you're not. Now, there are times you're going to be talking to people who are opposite, right? If I'm talking to someone like my wife who is harmony and they want a relationship and I don't have that, we're just not harmonizing, then I might lose the deal. But if you lean in on your strengths and you're doing volume, you will get deals because you will either woo someone over or harmonize with someone or communicate effectively with someone and it'll just click. And then there'll be people who you don't harmonize with, you don't connect with, but you've provided enough value to solve their pain that they're like, you know what, I'm just going to go with you. Like you've not wooed me over, we've not harmonized, uh, but you solved my pain, so I want to go with you. And so what I find a lot of people do is, and this is one reason I really don't like scripts, because at the beginning they're okay, right? It's a skeleton, it's fine. Here's what to say when you literally don't know what to say. But the reason I don't like script is because people think this is exactly what I'm going to say every single time I talk to someone. And the reality is conversations are fluid. It's dynamic. Everyone has a skeleton, but the flesh on that skeleton looks different for every single one. And you got to be able to flow and pivot. Yeah, I knocked the door once And the guy came out of the bat. Gave my little pitch. Hey, I help homeowners stop foreclosures. And out of the bat, he said, I'm selling my house. If I stuck to my script at the beginning, I would have tried to get him through all of these things before he concluded he wanted to sell. This deal that I sold yesterday that I made $66,000 on, I found out in conversations with the homeowner that he's been talking with another investor for a month. A month. I got this under contract in 1 hour conversation. And it was because I got in, listened, got through his smoke screen of I want to keep my house, found out the pain, found out a long-term solution, not just a band-aid on a gushing wound. And he texted this investor back and he said, I just sold my house. This guy I'm working with is not playing games. And the reason he concluded that was because the person he was working with was taking him through a script, was taking him through a process to help him see, that's what they've taken others people through. Like, let's go through all these steps because this is what my script says. This is how I know you're ready to sell your house. Like, no, let's get through the smoke screen. What's the long-term solution you want to keep, but it's not realistic? Okay, I'm buying houses. Let's stop
Yeah.
your foreclosure.
Bingo. It's like when you call like customer service, right? And they have like those scripts that you have to go off of, and you just like want to punch them through the phone because you're like, that doesn't even make sense. Like,
Yes,
stop reading the freaking script. Like, yeah.
I am not
So,
a single mom.
right, yeah, yeah. Like, yeah, no, definitely makes sense. And then I also wanted to follow up on something that you said previously, the rich dad, poor dad. So you said you actually went over that in high school, like with your students. Is that right?
Yeah, it was allowed in my curriculum to
Okay.
go through.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that's super interesting. I've actually never heard that before, and I think that, we say this a lot on this podcast that that would have been super helpful to, get any type of literally any finance book or knowledge in high school whatsoever. So
Yeah.
and that same thought process, I'm wondering if you can maybe give some advice to people, maybe like the high school class, right, that are new in their finance journey. Maybe no one has ever taught them. Maybe they didn't grow up with a dad, or they just didn't have any mentors that could help them with this. So, like in about 30 seconds, what type of financial advice would you give someone that's on their new journey?
Get connected with people whose Tuesday look like your dream week. They're doing the thing, they're in real estate, they're buying deals, they're going to closings. Get around those people because you'll absorb more than just a YouTube. Right? There are so many fine details and pieces that aren't communicated on YouTube that you'll get being in the room. And then get into books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich is another one, and just real and soundtracks by John Acuff helped me a ton in 2024. I listened to it probably 5 or 6 times. It's just like, okay, soundtracks is just about what you tell yourself, and if you tell yourself, "I'm not gonna make it, I'm not gonna do it," what do you expect? And so get around people living your dream, living your dream. Read good books, Rich Dad Poor Dad, soundtracks, Think and Grow Rich. And then let's keep listening to podcasts like this where people are in your same sphere doing the thing, right? Because you'll get a bunch of nuggets, you'll get some paint here and there, and eventually you'll have a great picture that gives you a visual of what you could actually build.
I love that. That is such good advice because there's so many ways to get this done, right? But you need to be around those people. You need to read the books. You need to make sure you're setting that right foundation. And I do love Liz's question that you were able to get some high schoolers on Rich Dad Poor Dad. I wish too that I had been able to read that when I was a kid too, because I think there's just so many ways to like learn from that. Like I really thought, in the 4 quadrants, I really thought like I was doing the thing I needed to do. I went to pharmacy school. I got good
Yep,
grades.
yep, yep,
I
yep, yep.
got as little debt as I possibly could. I, went full time into pharmacy because I'm like, okay, this is what I have to do so I can provide for, myself and my future family and all this. And like I didn't even think about those other quadrants. I didn't really understand that they existed. I didn't know where I needed to be. And I mean, that just, even if you changed one of those kids' trajectories, that's really
Oh yeah.
freaking cool.
Oh yeah.
That's so cool. Well, so, being a high school teacher and being an entrepreneur are completely different things, and they're completely different day structures, right? And so I'm wondering if there's any habits or routines that you've developed since you've now become a full-time real estate entrepreneur to make sure that you're productive and you're on your
Yeah.
goals.
So I have goals that I want to that pull me forward. One of those goals is I'm 28 right now. At 26, I made the goal of getting 30 rentals before I turned 30. That was before I joined Sub 2. I ended up joining Sub 2, and before I joined Sub 2 though, I thought I was going to burn my way there. I thought I was going to get 20% down and buy all of these. I look back and I'm like, man, I was ambitious and I didn't have any direction on how I was going to get that. Or no tangible way. Join Sub 2. This month alone I'm closing on 7 deals. I'm selling 3 to investors, but I'm keeping 4, and 3 of the well, one's going to be a fix and flip, but 3 of them will be sub 2. 2.7 interest rate, 3.2 interest rate, and a 5.2. The interest rates I can get now are 7%. Why would I want that? And so in 1 month alone, I am getting a bunch of deals at better interest rates without using 20%. I'm using private money, different strategies I've learned in the the community. And so having goals that drive you forward, and don't have goals that you can reach. And what I mean by that is, oh, I'm gonna do 10 steps in the morning, or I'm gonna do 1,000 steps a day. You do that walking to and fro your ship. Do 10,000, right? Do something just a little bit out of your reach. And what forces you to reach that goal is joining a community, is listening to this podcast, is networking and being in different rooms where people are doing 10,000 steps before 12 p.m., before noon, where people are buying 5 deals in 1 month when you're just like, man, I just want 5 deals in 2 years. Right?
Yeah.
Get around those people that just help you realize like you can dream a little bit bigger, and there are actually ways you can kind of cut the curve towards that goal.
I like that a lot. Yeah. I mean, your community and the people that are around you are literally everything. I mean, if no one around you is buying real estate, if no one around you is
Yep,
involved in
yep, yep,
lending,
yep,
if
yep,
no
yep.
one around you is doing that, you're not going to be doing it either, right? And it's not
That's
to
true.
say that those people are bad. It's just, it's hard to move yourself in the direction you're wanting to go if you're never around those people. So getting around them is
Yeah.
such good advice. So me,
People.
I just have a goal to
Yeah,
travel, get outside, explore the outdoors, do fun things in the process of this journey, right? Because we don't want to wait till we're retired. We don't want to wait till we're
yeah,
70 to
right.
finally live life. And so, wondering if you have any upcoming bucket list travel that you're looking forward to in the next couple of years.
So my wife really wants to go to Yellowstone Park and spend some time there. So I want to take her there. She's turning 30 this year, and so I am we're gonna be planning to use all of my Amex points from fix and flips and all of those. It is insane. But I'm gonna be using those points to book something for her and do a big 30-year retreat kind of thing. And then the other thing is we have a bunch of owner club retreats and immersions, and so we've been just staying a week. So if it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we come Monday through Wednesday just to do family time and spend time together. And so Phoenix, we're gonna try to do the Grand Canyon when we're down there, and then in California, it'll be our first time both going there. We're gonna spend some time at Disney. I think it's Disneyland that's out there, because Disney World is Miami or Florida. So we're just trying to like spend some time together on those different trips, and then do Yellowstone. That'd be the biggest. I think she loves nature. So super excited about.
Yeah, we can definitely relate to that. Bunch of nature lovers over here. Also, super smart on tax strategy because then it can just be a business trip, right? And you can write it off. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing I thought. How sad is that? So
Our brains are always going in that direction, right?
yeah, yeah. How do I save money on this? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I would love to hear what can people offer you or what are you looking for?
So I'm always looking to raise money. I have a guy at my church now who gets about depending on the deal, 12 to 14% return when he lends on different deals I have. And I've already refinanced him out a bunch of deals. So I'm always looking to help people who are like, man, I got money in the stock market, I got money in a money market account, and I just want something I can actually touch and know is good and with someone I can trust with paperwork. So I was always looking for that. I'm wanting to pour into people also. I realize, Andrea and Liz, you probably have seen this too, that there's so much disconnect. And people just like full deal walkthroughs. People like, hey, how I did this, steps 1 through 10. And I'm doing a lot of that on my YouTube channel, Ronald Paulius, where I talk like this $66,000 deal. I'm gonna be doing a live deal walkthrough, put it on my channel, and just let people get the puzzle pieces they miss so they could get a full picture of, oh, this is how he had the conversation. This is how he negotiated and got to this number. It's as helpful as it can be at the end of the day. Networking, being with people like Liz or Andrea who are doing deals, like working with these types of people, is what really will kind of fine tune and sharpen the picture, give you a better resolution, if you will. And so I want to do the best I can to kind of serve in that way.
Yeah, I love that because I am very much so the person that needs that, right? So when you have like, okay, here's step 1 through 10, like, well, how do you tell me more about what that actually looks like, right?
Exactly.
So the devil's in the details, and I want to see the whole journey, and so
Yeah,
that'll be very helpful for a lot of people. So, thank you for doing that.
yeah, yeah.
So I think it's really important that people know how to be able to contact you if they would like to work with you. So can you please let us know the best way to get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is on Instagram, Ronald Paulius. I am always putting a story up, talking about what I'm doing, giving tips and tricks. A lot of people, they hear about negotiations and they think only about negotiations on the seller side. And the reality is, you're actually negotiating with the buyer also. Whether it's a fix and flip you're selling and putting on market, and you're negotiating with the family that wants it, how are you negotiating? Well, you're trying to make it stand out. You're trying to make it beautiful. You're trying to convince them that it's worth buying and living the rest of their life in. And then you're negotiating with end buyers, like the deal I sold yesterday. I was to an end buyer who he's going to fix and flip. And I showed him comps, and I we had a conversation, and he tried to get me to come down 25,000. Initially, I was going to make 80. He tried to get me to come down 25,000. Said no, let's meet at 16, and I still made $66,000 on the deal. So you're always negotiating. And so I'm giving tips like that on my story at Ronald Paulius. Ronald spelled the I almost said the right way, the regular way. I don't know if there's a way to spell it. And then Paulius, Pauleus. So Paul, and then you add EUS on it. On Instagram, I'm always sending voice audios and giving people little tips and tricks to kind of help them make progress and with their W-2, just like I did.
I love that so much. Those tips are, I mean, so valuable. I think it's nice to learn from people who have actually been doing deals rather than people who just sell courses to people. You know? So
Yes.
thank you
When's
for
the
those.
last time you did a deal? About
Yeah,
10 years ago, but yeah.
yeah, right. Oh man. So yeah, no, those tips and tricks are awesome. So, and man, we have learned so much from you. Your story is so inspiring. Like with basically what is essentially your first deal made your entire salary. That's
Yeah.
pretty dang cool. And so, and it's not like you've stopped there. You've clearly kept going and it's only gotten better. So, man, I super appreciate you coming on this episode. We have really, really enjoyed having you.
Thank you,
And
God.
yeah, and thank you everyone else for listening to this week's episode of From Corporate to Cashflow. We will catch you next week. Hey, it's Andrea. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you liked it, I'd love it if you hit subscribe. Thanks so much.